So tonight I'm just going to chat to you about how children develop motor skills. We're going to look at the 3 stages of motor development. And I'm also, as I said, teaching you about how to teach handwriting and how to teach scissor use. So to give you an idea of why I love what I do, here's my little man Hugh on the swing, and then you'll see Phoebe's feet just here on your right hand side. So Hugh was born with vestibular delay, so that's balance difficulties. He was the top twin inside my womb, so he lay sideways, which means he didn't get to experience upside down and those types of things in the womb. So when he was born, when I would tip him upside down like you would a baby, his eyes would roll into the back of his head and he'd look quite dizzy. So we did a lot of work to get him to be able to balance like the rest of his friends at kinder. Phoebe here, you'll see that her feet, she didn't like to touch the ground when she was little. Even when she was a baby, she didn't really clap her feet together or put her feet in her mouth. She didn't really know she had feet. So we had to do a lot of therapy with her to get her to know how to use her feet. So it's taken a while, but the reason why I love what I do is that it works. So you'll see in this picture here, Hugh's holding onto a set of monkey bars. He can now swing completely upside down without feeling nauseous or confused. He is upright smiling straight after spinning, rather than before he would be disoriented and really confused. Oh, sorry, you can't see the pictures. I'll have to fix that for you. Sorry, Beck, thanks for letting me know. It might be because this one of Hugh is a video, so I will have to fix that for next time. Can you see Phoebe next to Hugh? Oh, Lynette, you can. Okay. I'll see. Oh, it might be Beck because you're on a phone. We'll work that out. Thanks for letting me know. Phoebe here is on the right. You can see that she's standing now. So after a few months of constant therapy, constant tickling her feet and doing different things with her feet, she's now standing. So the things that we do with motor learning and brain training does work. It just takes a lot of patience. So I'm lucky that I can do that with my kids at home, and we've had a lot of success. I'm just going to, hopefully Becky can see this picture. It's a picture of nervous system. I'll make it sound not scary. Here we've got, I just used beads for you to make it a bit easier. Here you've got this cell body. So this is a neuron. We have millions and millions of neurons all throughout our brain and our body. And this is the cell body. This is where our computer system is. So I don't know if you can see these beads here. I'm going to try and hold them up. We have, if you imagine, this is our cell body, and we connect them. Every time we learn a new skill, we connect our beads together and we build branches, or what typically is called dendrites. So you can see that plenty of branches come off each neuron. Now, neurons send information from our brain to our hands. So my neurons are sending information from my brain to my hands at the moment, telling me to click the beads together. The pretty cool thing is my hands will then tell my brain when it has clicked the beads together. It'll also, through sensation, tell my brain if I've dropped one or if I'm having trouble picking it up. So this is how kids learn motor skills. It's constantly learning the skill, making mistakes, trying the skill again, and the neurons will keep forming more and more branches. If I was to practice this over and over and over again, my neurons in that area of my brain would be really dense, so there'd be lots of neurons there. That's similar to if you think of people who study music a lot, they have more neuron branches in the musical center of their brain. So the more we practice, the more branches we get. But the challenge is, which I tell everyone, is practice doesn't make perfect, because if I use the wrong technique to do these beads over and over again, then I'm just learning the wrong technique. Practice is making me create a bad technique. So to fix that, say for example, if I hold my pencil the wrong way, I would have to undo some of the training that I've done, and I'd have to retrain my nerves to do the correct technique. So something to think about when we're learning something. Those branches will go for whatever we practice the most. So if you think of nerves, nerves aren't scary. Nerves are just communicating messages to and from our hands and our body. If we teach kids this, it can help them understand that when they make a mistake, it's actually really good to make a mistake, because it means that we can try again. So I always teach kids nerves either through beads, or I teach them through daisy chains. If you think, when you connect daisy chains together, you have the big part is the cell body, where all the computer system is. And then you have the branches, which is where the messages get sent through. So that's what I love about the nervous system. When you look at motor development, we have 3 stages. So everything is in 3 stages. This little guy here, you can see he's learning how to play with the ball. He's also looking like he's in early stages of walking. He's looking big, wide open stance, ready to fall over. When we look at walking, or in any motor skill, you'll have the introductory phase. So first you'll give it a go, and you'll have to put all of your focus into learning how to walk or into learning how to do these beads. In the introductory phase, you're very slow. You make a lot of mistakes. If his mum in that photo was to talk to him or sing him a song, he would become completely distracted and he may possibly fall over or make an error. But the more he practices, so the more branches he makes in those neurons, he gets to a point of progression. Progression, his errors get less and his movement becomes more consistent. And he'll start to be able to maybe, as he walks, carry the ball or throw the ball. Mastery is when he can, like a soccer player who's had heaps of training, be able to kick that ball on the run, be able to kick the ball while talking or while singing. And it's when I look at motor development, when we look at kids in a classroom, if I'm learning to hold this pencil, for example, but I'm still making a lot of errors and I'm only at either introductory phase or progression phase, if you put me in a classroom where it's noisy and then the teacher asks me a question, it's way outside the skill that I have for this pencil. And that's where kids get frustrated. Yes, they might be able to colour in something at home when there's no distraction and when they're able to focus. But in a classroom setting, it can really challenge kids' motor skills because they need that element of mastery to be able to do those motor skills without distraction. Are you going okay? Please, if you have any questions, please interrupt because there's only 2 of you, so you can ask as many questions as you like. So when I teach handwriting for kids and for teachers, I always start handwriting with the feet. Sounds weird. Handwriting would start with the hands, but it actually starts here of my little man Hugh. And Hugh has beautiful handwriting. He finds it cheeky when I sometimes get him to do random things for photos. In the first photo on the left, you'll see that he doesn't have stable feet. When his feet aren't stable, he'll lean forward onto the table and he'll start to get sort of restriction in his shoulder. When he's leaning on the table like he is there, the shoulder's not able to move freely to write and to flow those letters. And so the writing becomes really small and really rigid. Compared to if we get them to sit up nice and tall with their both feet flat on the ground, it gives movement in that shoulder to be able to move and they can write bigger and write more coordinated. So always trying to get kids to sit upright, sit in the back of their chair, but also making sure that in kinder in particular, the chairs are small enough that they can reach their feet on the ground. Because you may have kids who are trying to reach the ground, but they'll fidget a lot. And when they fidget a lot, they then can't control their hand. The next thing that we look at with teaching handwriting is pincer grip. So I'll try and get up closer to you. So pincer grip, as you know, is just to hold it on the 3rd finger and to try and get the hand into wrist extension. So Isla here, this is one of my other kids. She's got a beautiful tray with her hand laying out nice and flat, if you can imagine. I'm going to try and turn that for you. So the hand actually needs to be in this wrist extension because if we were to write like this, again, when we go to write, our hands would be really restricted in how much we can move and form letters. But if our hand is nice and extended, we have more room in our shoulder and our hand to move. So the more games we play where we hold things on a tray or we open our hands up into that extension, it's going to be great for them to be able to form letters. The picture here where Isla's pinching is another fantastic thing to encourage kids to get into this pincer grip, and more importantly to teach the kids to get these 2 fingers out of the way. Typically you'll see if kids are trying a new skill, say for example to tear paper, they'll come and grab the paper and they'll want to rip the paper with 2 hands and they'll want these fingers to be involved, these ones here. But what we want to teach kids is to actually use the pinching fingers, not the pinky, because then you have more control over the paper and you'll have more control over the pencil if we get rid of these fingers and we don't use them at all. So whenever you're getting kids to learn how to write, just keep an eye on what they're doing with those last 2 fingers, and you'll find that kids that have trouble with handwriting are the ones that are using these fingers too much, trying to get rid of that action. The way I do that is I give them, I don't know if you can see here, but I have different beads. So here we have quite a big bead where they could, if they, little hands would be able to hold all of it with these 2 fingers here. But if you change the size of the bead, so if we start with the beads with this, and we start to bead a large bead onto a piece of string, that's fine, that would be great. So I'm just going to see if you can see that there. I'm learning how my camera works. But what we will do next is then I'll start to get a smaller bead. And with this smaller bead, I will have to really only rely on those pincer grip muscles. I'd have to tuck these ones away to be able to bead it onto my piece of string. And that's what we're trying to achieve for these kids. The more beading we can do, or tiny Lego, we want to be able to get them into that pinching grip and getting these 2 fingers out of the way. Another thing we look at when we do handwriting is if you're having any kids who are in palmar grip, which you might find a few, 3, 4, some 5-year-olds might still be in this grip. All I do is I just, sorry, I've lost my pencil. I just cut the pencil in half, or I snap crayons. And when you have a smaller pencil, say for example, if it was this length, they can't really grip it. So when we have a smaller pencil, they have to then get into pincer grip position. So if you snap all of your crayons, snap all of your pencils, I know it sounds mean, but it will give them the, that will help them to avoid having this palmar grip. The reason why we don't want the palmar grip is the hand will fatigue very quickly. The more fingers that are on the pencil, the quicker the hand will tire. And it's okay for in prep where we're only writing 1 sentence at a time, but as we get to grade 2 and 3, the hand will really start to get tired. The next thing I wanted to just quickly go through was how to use scissors. This little man here, I actually get quite a few kids come in and they'll sit in our assessment and they'll be snipping like this, 2-handed, which if you're a mum, you get a bit concerned when a kid carries scissors around like that. What I do when kids come in like this is I don't even start with any paper. I have nothing for them to cut. I just get them to place the scissors onto the table, and they have to just keep practicing putting their thumb in the little hole, 2 fingers in the next hole, and just picking up the scissors. And then I get them to put the scissors back down, and I get them to, again, put their thumb in the little hole, the 2 fingers in the bigger hole, and then we just practice that over and over and over again. If you go back to this slide where we talk about introductory, progression and mastery, we need scissor use to go through that phase as well. Introductory being we need to be able to hold and pick up a pair of scissors properly first. We need to master that skill before we even start to go anywhere near paper. When we hold the pair of scissors, so you can see here the thumb always in the little hole, the 2 fingers in the bigger hole. Left-handed obviously would have the same process, but in a left-handed scissors. That's sometimes hard for centers. So if you have any left-handers, just keep an eye on how they're picking up those scissors. Scissors requires something called bilateral coordination. I'm just going to write this down here because there's amazing resources that teach kids the process of bilateral coordination if you want to copy it. Bilateral coordination basically means what I was doing with the beads before, where we're holding something in one hand and then something in the other hand, and we're doing 2 hands at the same time. Bilateral coordination is a real challenge for some kids because it requires so many skills, but I could be here for hours talking about them. Bilateral coordination is important because if you think when I go to cut with something, I need to hold the paper with one hand, I need to coordinate the scissors with the other hand. So if I don't have the skill of bilateral coordination, if I can't coordinate 2 hands at the same time, so I'm just twirling something in my fingers at the moment. If I can't coordinate 2 hands at the same time, then scissor use is going to be really hard. And what will end up happening is they'll tend to rest the paper on the table, or they'll do like a snipping action, which it won't have that beautiful fluid movement. So bilateral coordination first. Again, going through the 3 phases of motor development. You can't coordinate scissors and a piece of paper until you have bilateral coordination. Now with the scissors too, so I've practiced picking them up in the correct format. I'm now going to take it to a piece of paper. I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is just a tiny piece of note paper and it's quite thin. To start kids with cutting paper, I actually give them card first, because when I go to hold this card, this is an index card. When I go to hold this card, it doesn't flop around as much. So when I hold it in one hand, it's more stable for me to then bring my scissors in and cut it. So I'm trying to find a way to be able to show you. So see how it's not floppy, where if I pick up the piece of paper, it sort of flops around and carries on. So the more we can give kids card first and see if they can practice that. We then can sometimes give them a guide to cut along, but again, going through those phases of let's be able to successfully pick up the scissors 10 times without making a mistake. Then we go to bilateral coordination. Can we coordinate 2 things at the same time? And that can be done by simple things like nuts and bolts. So if you have nuts and bolts that they could just turn on and off, what it's doing is it's making one hand be stable while the other hand is moving. I mean, the stable hand is just as important as the hand that's moving. So really that is what I wanted to chat about in the webinar today. It was really just to practice this, so thank you for letting me practice my software. And we do have an upcoming workshop where I talk a lot more about motor development. It's in Melbourne. I can try and record that and put that up online for people who can't make it. And I'm hoping to have many more webinars coming up. So now I get used to all this software, I can keep you updated. So please, I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. So if you have any questions at all, please write them down and I can see how I can help. Otherwise, I'd love to know your feedback of how you found today, including how the audio was, whether you could hear and see things okay. And I'm here to learn. So thank you, ladies. Thanks for being the only 2 here tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks, Beck. I'll just write my email down here in case you need it. Great that you mentioned Lexi, Beck. So Lexi being 2 is when we want to start developing this. I'm not saying give a 2-year-old a pair of scissors, please don't be doing that. But it's when you can start to introduce things like Play-Doh, where we roll things around in 2 hands at a time. It's where, you know, we get pom-poms and we learn that pinching grip with our pom-poms or sequins. It's at 2 that we can develop these fine motor skills. Also to incorporate gross motor skills as well. If we do these activities when she's standing up, so when she's standing at a table, it promotes her balance at the same time as builds up her leg strength and posture, which is all really important for when they go to school. I'm really passionate about getting these kids to do this at that 2-year-old to 3-year-old level, so they're well and truly ready and confident for school, rather than trying to catch these kids up in, you know, 5 at the ages of 5, 6, and 7. So thank you for mentioning Lexi. It's great that we can be ahead of. Have a lovely night, ladies. Thank you.